All righty. Thank you everybody for being here today. We're gonna go ahead and I think we're gonna get started since we're a couple minutes after the hour now. Just wanted to let everybody know that this webinar will be recorded and posted online. So please remain muted. There will be time at the end for y'all to ask questions. By remaining on this meeting, you consent to these conditions. So we're going to go ahead and get started and introduce ourselves. I can go first. My name is Erin Warren. I am the Global Health Undergraduate Advisor. My pronouns are she, her, hers. And I've been in this role for about 2 years now as an advisor, and I'm so grateful to be doing this webinar with UCDC today. I love finding field experience opportunities for our students, and so I hope y'all enjoy this presentation just as much and consider it for your potential field experience or throughout your time at UCSD. So I will hand it over to Mackenzie.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mackenzie Richardson, and I'm a UCDC peer advisor. And I've been with the UCDC program for about 2 years since I did the program back in winter of 2019. And I interned at a international policy think tank called the Wilson Center, where I was a media intern, learning about all these different policy areas that the Wilson did research on, which was really, really cool. And so today we're joined by 2 students in the global health department, one of which is actually my colleague, Alexis, who also works at the academic internship program, which UCDC is a part of. And the other is Divya Bhatia, who did UCDC in fall. So they're both here to share some of their experiences with these different programs that can help you fulfill that field experience requirement. So I'll turn it over to Alexis to introduce herself really quick. And my pronouns are she, her, hers. My apologies.
Yeah, hi, everyone. My name is Alexis. My pronouns are also she, her, hers. And like Mackenzie was saying, I work with her. I'm a peer advisor for AIP. And I'm a senior in the Global Health program. And then I'm also going to be doing the Global Health MA next year. So I'm here today just to talk about my field experiences in global health. And then I'll share some more information about AIP towards the end.
Yay, and Divya, if you want to introduce yourself too.
Hi everyone, my name is Divya. I am currently on my phone, as you can probably see from the vertical angle, because my Wi-Fi cut out, which we love. But my pronouns are she, her, hers. I'm also a global health major and a climate change minor. Also a senior in the program, so doing the thesis right now, which is really fun. And I am still doing the internship that I started in UCDC, so I'm super excited to talk to everyone about it today.
Awesome. Well, we're going to get right on into it. Just to go through, what we will be chatting about today. So we'll be doing an overview of the UCDC program, some general components of the program, the timeline to applying, as well as the what, why, and when it comes to applying to UCDC. I'm sure a lot of you are on this call wanting to know about what type of credit that you'll get towards the global health major and the minor, if we have any minors on. We'll get into that as well. We'll talk about the internship process, how to find an internship, and hear from our current students, Divya and Alexis, how they found theirs. We'll talk about program, eligibility, and cost. And again, we'll have time for y'all to ask questions at the end. So yeah, we can get right into it. And Mackenzie is going to be chatting about planning for UCDC.
Yeah, so just to get us started, a really quick overview of UCDC for maybe some of you who had just heard about it before jumping onto this session. So what it is students spend 1 quarter in Washington, D.C, living there in the UC Washington Center, while also doing a full-time internship and taking a class. So you get academic credit for your internship, and then you also get academic credit for being in a classroom, and there's going to be a little bit more on that later. So you are a full-time student enrolled at UCSD during the quarter of the program. And the main focus for today, of course is also going to be on what types of internships are out there. And so the most important thing is that students are responsible for applying to internships. So they have control over where they're applying to and therefore like where they get to work, which I think is really great. And so one of the benefits of this program is building your professional network, connecting with people in DC, as well as other students across the UCs. So that helps expand your career possibilities, also make some new friends, and of course, make some new experiences. And it doesn't hurt that you live a very short 10-minute walk from the White House, because the UC Washington Center is in the heart of DC. And just to show where that is, here is a map, and on the right is what the UC Washington Center looks like. So it's this big, beautiful building. And like I said, okay, 16 minutes if you are walking leisurely, but I speed walk sometimes. So 10 minutes for me, usually because I was running a little bit late to the metro station, which you can see is around the corner. So moving on really quickly, so that we have plenty of time for our students towards the end. So this is the path to UCDC. So if you're at step 1, which is planning for DC, and I'll get into this a little bit later, but I also recommend during the step 1 phase, applying for internships and looking for internships so that you don't miss any deadlines. And the next steps are going to be preparing your application to apply to the UCDC program, actually submitting it. And then if you get your acceptance letter, then the next step is to continue applying for internships so that you can secure your DC internship. And so the whole time, the UCDC UCSD staff team is here to help you. So please come in and talk with us. And then once you're accepted to the UCDC program, you also get access to our UC Washington team, who can also help you look for internships. So that is the overview of where we are at. And I'm going to turn over to Erin to talk about some of the global health department considerations.
Awesome. So I'm sure a lot of y'all are here to just kind of hear about how it can apply to the global health major. And so definitely wanted to get into that. UCDC can help fulfill the field experience requirement, which is required for all global health majors in the BA and the BS. And it's optional for minors, but we also really encourage it if you are here and you are a global health minor. Again, it's not required, but it's, a great experience to take what you're learning about in global health in the classroom and put it into practice. We absolutely encourage students to complete field experience on UCDC. I'm always emailing the deadlines for UCDC in our global health newsletter and our news blast. And so we definitely advocate for it. We just want you to consider a few things. The most important thing is that the internship that you choose must be global health related. And so by that, we want it to be meaningful and challenging work and an opportunity to become knowledgeable about global health issues in practice. So again, taking what you're learning about in your core classes and your upper division electives and applying it to the quote unquote real world, making sure that it's related. The other thing that's important is we ask that all students that are considering UCDC for field experience to request pre-approval, which is a super easy process on the Global Health Program website. It's an online form, and I'm going to put it in the chat once I'm done chatting or talking here. But it takes typically about 5 to 10 business days, depending on how many requests that we have at the time, to be reviewed and approved. But we will let you know through the virtual advising center regarding the status of your pre-approval form or petition. And so I guess in terms of that too, definitely filling this pre-approval form out is really important while you're in the early stages of planning what internship you want to do, because the last thing that we would want is for you to go and do this whole internship and realize that it doesn't actually count for field experience. So the key is to have that pre-approval prior to committing to it. So, when in doubt, submit it. Even if you don't go with that internship, at least The other component, which is the seminar course, unfortunately doesn't count towards the global health major requirements. The reason for that is because, to my knowledge, it's pass, no pass typically. And so the good thing though is that, you need 180 units to graduate anyway, and 60 of those 180 units need to be upper division. And so it will give you credit towards that, even though you aren't, necessarily getting it towards a medical social science or, an upper division writing requirement. The global health program was accepting pass no pass, due to the academic Senate approval as a result of switching to remote learning because of the coronavirus, but we're most likely going to be going back to all letter graded courses in starting in fall 2021, since we will be most likely transitioning back to campus per the chancellor. So that's the main reason why. But another way that you can utilize this course is by working with your minor department if you have a minor, your other major if you're a double major, or potentially your college, and seeing if they'll apply it towards a requirement there. So that's just some of the ways that you can, apply it towards global health, mainly through field experience. And so when it comes to planning for UCDC, there's, a few questions you want to ask yourself. What do you want to pursue? Think about your journey to attaining your degree at UCSD. What are you pursuing? What are your interests, both academic in the classroom and outside the classroom? Do you want to do any other programs or pursue any other opportunities? These are things that you should consider, or, we recommend that you consider when reflecting on what's appealing to you about this program, especially compared to other opportunities, especially if you have limited time at UCSD. We have two, as we mentioned before, we have two awesome undergrads here today that will be speaking later to kind of give information about their experiences, Divya and Alexis. And so they'll share their experience specific to global health. But we also want you to consider the why. So why do you want to pursue UCDC? So is it to explore your interests, to help you find out what you want to do? If that's the case, then maybe it's better to do UCDC in your junior year to give you more time, to explore those interests through classes in your senior year. Do you want to do UCDC to find out, if you want to work in a specific field or specific industry? If this is the case, maybe doing it close to your, in your senior year to help you be better equipped to find a job after graduating, if you find out you like that field a lot and you're making those connections. So that's a little bit about the what and the why, which leads ultimately to the when. So after considering these, figuring out kind of the timeline of when you want to be participating is important. And so you should definitely consider, well, I guess the UCDC deadlines are 2 quarters in advance typically. So for example, right now they're accepting applications for fall 2021 and the final deadline is at the end of April. So it kind of gives you an idea of how early you should be planning for the future. Also take into consideration some of the restrictions you might face, such as needing to be upper division standing, needing a minimum 2.5 GPA. And also the fact that you're across the country. So you might need to figure out your housing, your current housing and what you're going to do with that when you return back to UCSD. There's also the factor of the UCS or the UCDC program has costs of attending. So creating a financial plan to attend the program is important, especially if you don't have financial aid, which Mackenzie's going to go over the application requirements, the program costs, and financial aid in more detail later. But another tip is if you're considering going to grad school right away after you finish your bachelor's, then it might be more beneficial to complete the UCDC program in your junior year to have ample time to talk about UCDC in your personal statement. For students deciding to go in their senior year, definitely be mindful that UCDC may not be on your resume when applying to graduate school. So what you can do in your personal statement is mention that you're applying to the program or that you've been accepted to the program in your personal statement if you are planning on going to grad school. So just a tip there, but definitely planning for when is also very key. And so now I think I'm going to turn over to Mackenzie.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, Erin. So just going back to how does UCDC count towards requirements that Erin had talked about previously, especially related to global health. So the first way is through the research seminar course, which is 4 units. It can be graded or it can be pass, no pass. But I do think that either way, the global health department doesn't always accept it, because usually it's for like poli-sci or communications credit. It can be accepted through a couple different departments, but I don't think that global health is one of them. But it is 4 units of upper division credit. And so that one, you are actually taking that course at the UC Washington Center, and it's taught by a UC professor. So, you're doing readings, you're doing in-class assignments, that kind of thing. All the classrooms are located on the top floor of the building. So it is in person with your fellow students. And then the other 8 units that you will be receiving in order to stay full-time is the internship seminar course. So that is called AIP 197 DC. And so you have the option of taking that for 6, 8, or 10 units. And that is for sure pass, no pass. And so that's just giving you course credit for the internship. So you don't have to do anything for that. Just by being in UCDC, you are automatically enrolled in that AIP 197 DC course. So there is also an option to take an elective course, which is just another research seminar course, again for 4 units. I don't usually recommend that students take it unless they really need extra credits. So just in case you really need some help getting to that 180. Otherwise, I just tell students, enjoy your time at UCDC, take the extra time to go explore the city. And so one last note that we'll kind of touch on a little bit later is that UCDC is offered for the fall, winter, spring, and summer course. For the summer course, there is no required academic component. So you could just go do a summer internship and not have any kind of academic component attached to it, which is great if you are paying for course credits out of pocket and if you don't want to disrupt your academic courses. So like, especially if there are some either required courses you need to take that you can't miss a certain quarter, or you really want to take a class at UCSD and it's only offered for a quarter, summer can be a good option. Summer is a little bit more competitive though, so we do ask that you come in and talk to us if you're interested in that. So moving on, and I'll kind of go quickly through this internship section so that we can focus on our students here today, but we'll get into the internship opportunities. So the first thing to do when you start your internship search, which I definitely recommend you all start thinking about even now, even if you're not even interested in UCDC, sometimes I think it's just good to think about these kinds of things. So first, think about classes that you've taken, any student organizations you've been a part of, or even any life experiences that just really stand out to you as things that you enjoyed. And try to think about, what was it specifically that you liked? And then after that, I recommend starting to ask around. So professors, family, friends, supervisors, people that you work with, if they have any experience with those kinds of things that you thought about that you liked, ask them, if they worked on something similar to that. And you'll start hearing names of organizations, types of work that will help you start thinking about internships that could be related. The other thing too, obviously this graphic was pre-pandemic, but to meet people, whether that's in your classes or right now, maybe professors that you are taking for the spring, those are some people you can connect with. And then lastly, to start to do a little bit of research. So maybe look up some of those places that you've been hearing about, some of those organizations. You can also look at the UCDC website to start looking up internship locations. You can go to career services, and you can also start exploring on internship websites such as Indeed, or Glassdoor, or USA Jobs, that kinds of things. And the whole time, once again, the UCDC staff is here to help. So even if you haven't applied to the UCDC program yet, but you've already started looking around for internships and you want some guidance, you're always more than welcome to make an appointment with us, and we can help you get unstuck or start moving through the process. Because most importantly, like I've said before, students are responsible for finding and applying to their own internships. You are not given an internship when you get into the program. So it's something really important to keep in mind. So some internship questions to ask yourself, and some that I'm going to provide some answers for you. So how soon to begin applying for internships in DC? As early as you can is usually the best answer, especially if you are interested in doing any specialty programs, such as applying to be a White House intern, which you can 100% do. Applying to be a paid intern, paid internships are out there. Sometimes they have earlier deadlines. So that's why I say the earlier you search, the better. And that way you don't miss a deadline, because there are some deadlines that are before that UCDC quarter deadline. For example, Divya could probably tell you the Department of State internship deadlines were way before the fall quarter that Divya applied to. So how many internships should you apply to? Going back to my statement on summer's really competitive. So we usually recommend up to 40 internships, which is a lot. But for the rest of the academic year, we usually recommend 20 to 30. Winter is the least competitive quarter because people tend to not like to go to very cold places, such as I went to winter, and it was definitely a smaller applicant pool. So maybe for winter, slightly less internships, but in general, we recommend 20 to 30. Can you have a paid internship? Absolutely. And, we say if you can find one and get it, please do, because it helps a lot. Where can you begin looking for internships? I'll get into this in a minute, but again, I recommend going onto our website where we have a bunch of different internship databases and search websites. So if you don't have any relevant experience, especially when it comes to a lot of these like policy related internships, will that hinder your search? No, absolutely not. A lot of these organizations know that they have students applying from many different backgrounds and fields. And so the important thing to focus on are your transferable skills and of course, like why you're interested in that particular internship. And then lastly, while you're on your search, if you see internship start and end dates that don't quite align with the quarter system, just know that a lot of DC schools operate on the semester system, but a lot of DC organizations are familiar with the quarter system. And so they are usually happy to work with us. So moving on super quickly to potential internships, these are some of the types of organizations you could work for. So Capitol Hill, US departments, a lot of nonprofits are in DC, especially a lot of nonprofit headquarters, which is awesome. You can work at a think tank like I did. And then some of the examples of organizations that actually students from the Global Health Department who are in the UCDC program worked at are some of the names on the right. So like Public Citizen, Kids in Need of Defense, a lot of UCDC folks have worked there. Divya's organization, Center for Mind Body Medicine, and there's even the Consortium of Universities in Global Health. So a lot of opportunity. And if you're still not really sure, like what's the difference between, a nonprofit or a think tank versus a congressional internship, I made a little quiz, which we have up on our website, and I can drop in the chat, and it just kind of helps you explore these options. So I wanted to turn it over now to our student experiences portion. And so just to start with Divya as our UCDC alumni, Divya, I wanted to ask you to get us started. You could share with us how you found your internship. What were your internship duties while you were there? And what was your favorite memory from your time in the UCDC program?
Hi, so I am working with the Center for Mind Body Medicine, which is a nonprofit in DC that basically addresses population-wide psychological health support and how we can provide that to communities within the US and abroad. And then I also worked with the Department of State, and the two overlapped a little bit. So the Department of State one started in November-ish, and then obviously the other one started at the end of September when the quarter was starting. And I only applied to 12 internships, which I was not expecting to, but it felt like so many. I couldn't believe I had only applied to 12. But that was just because what with UCDC becoming remote, I decided to go, then withdrew, then decided to go again. So it was a little confusing, but I ended up hearing back from 3 to 4 before the quarter started, and then heard back from a few more after the quarter had started. I guess my biggest advice with finding an internship would be, if you know people in DC or have a connection with someone in DC, use that to your advantage. I ended up working at the Center for Mind Body Medicine because my mom was in like a book club or something with someone who worked for the organization, and they mentioned that they were looking, and that's how I got connected and interviewed and eventually got the position. And I applied for the Department of State in March of 2020. So that was many, many months before fall started. And I actually didn't get my first choice, but I was basically waitlisted. And then someone saw my application and thought I would work well on a project. So they ended up reaching out to me in November and offered me the opportunity. As for duties for the Center for Mind Body Medicine, I am a research intern. So I meet with my team 2 to 4 times a week for team check-ins, staff meetings, and I basically research and submit briefs on that research for whatever the founder of the organization wants. I've also transitioned a little bit more into project coordination, which is really fun. And then for the Department of State, I was working with their Global Talent Management Bureau. So I was contacting a bunch of different people for my boss to spread the word about different opportunities within the Department of State. And I also got to present on a lot of those programs at universities and different organizations. For my favorite memory, I honestly can't pick one because the nonprofit is just an absolute dream. I want to work there forever and ever and ever. It is so wonderful. The people are amazing. I would say my favorite thing has just been the culture of the organization, which is so important because even when they have me do very administrative, tedious tasks that I don't really like, I am 100% in it because I agree with the vision of the organization. So I would say my favorite thing has been, before every meeting, we always do mental health check-ins. We always do a few minutes of breathing to begin and close every meeting. Doesn't matter how many people are in the meeting, whether there's like 2 people or 50, we do the same thing every single time. Maybe not the check-ins because that takes a while, but definitely the breathing, and that is huge because the organization really cares about me, and it shows, and it's made working with them and asking to stay on longer just so easy.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And you already started to touch on this, but maybe if you could talk a little bit about how your career goals and like plans after graduation have changed after doing your internships at the State Department and the center.
Yes. So I wasn't sure if I wanted to go to grad school until maybe November of this past year. So I didn't decide until I went to a UCSD MA info session, and I just loved what they were saying. So I applied for that and I got in, and I was really happy. But then I was looking at one of my dream schools, Georgetown, which I have always wanted to go to and didn't get into for undergrad. And I was like, oh, they don't even have a PhD for global health. So master's would really be my last shot at attending the school for what I wanted to. And the founder of my organization is a professor at Georgetown Medical School. And I was like, well, if I'm ever going to get in, this is my best shot. So I asked him for a letter of rec. He actually said, write it for me. So I wrote my own letter of rec and submitted it to him, and he made the changes accordingly for however he wanted to phrase it, which is a great practice. Highly recommend people try that. And I submitted it and I got in. And even though I don't know anyone in DC, having already had that remote network of people that I've worked with at the organization made the decision a lot easier because I have people already there in place for when I move there in August. So I will be there to pursue my Master's of Science in Global Health in the fall.
That is so awesome. Thank you, Divya, for sharing that. And then for the students, like we said, we're going to have some Q&A at the end. So feel free to put some questions in the chat if you think of them, and also hang on to them for the end. And so moving on so that we have time for Alexis. You have done so much, so many programs, which is so amazing. So a question I have for you is, what were these various programs that you participated in, and how did they influence your journey in global health? And also similarly, what was a standout moment for you in one of these opportunities?
Yeah, hi everyone. So thanks so much for sharing, Divya. It was great to hear about all of your experiences. So to talk a little bit about what I've done for global health, the first program that I did was through the Foundation for International Medical Relief of Children, or FIMRC for short. And so basically I participated in their Global Health Fellowship, which is a month-long program, and there's multiple live meetings each day. So we had a bunch of Zoom sessions with like medical clinics in Costa Rica and the Dominican Republic. And we were taught how to translate prescriptions in Spanish and relay that to the patients. We got to observe their pediatric clinics. We conducted weekly case studies, and we were assigned an individual research project. So my project focused on the need for the installation of dry pit latrines in the Dominican Republic to prevent the spread of disease. So I started this fellowship at the beginning of my global health coursework, and it made me think a lot about the privileges that we have here, because up until that point, I had never stopped to consider what life would be like if we didn't have access to public or private restrooms. So when I was assigned the topic, I didn't immediately think that it was the most exciting topic, but upon further research, you realize how important these basic living conditions are. And so there was a really fascinating experience. Typically it is in person, but because it was during the pandemic, they shifted it to remote, which honestly had its own pros, because I was able to communicate with the different clinics in various countries, whereas if it was in person, you only get to focus on the site that you are in. And so after that, that took care of most of my required hours. So to fulfill the rest, I decided to do FMPH 199, which is through the UCSD Public Health Program. And so this one is definitely more research focused. So I worked as a research assistant for the SMART 2.0 study under Joe Godino. So basically our study was focused on decreasing BMI for college age individuals through health coaching and interventions. So as a research assistant, I did a lot of participant outreach, scheduling, data and survey review, and social media content creation. All of my work was online, but they did start doing in-person work as well. I just wasn't able to do any of that. So FMPH 199 is kind of similar to AIP in the sense that you earn academic credit based off of how many hours a week you're working. I decided to do this for 2 quarters and then chose to stop so I could spend more time to focus on my current internship. So if anyone's interested in FMPH 199, you can just go to the public health website, and you typically send a resume and a cover letter to the study manager that's listed for the project you're interested in. And then what I'm working on right now, so I intern virtually with Fair Girls, and Fair Girls is a nonprofit anti-sex trafficking organization that's based out of Washington, D.C. So my position is virtual, and I'm an outreach and prevention intern. So I host webinars on different topics with the other interns. So we did cultural competency, misogyny in the media. I conduct research. Right now I'm doing a research project on sexual assault and the connection to sex trafficking. And we attend a lot of meetings with guest speakers from Child Protective Services, law enforcement, detectives in the trafficking field, and also have a lot of guest speakers from other trafficking organizations. And then I was also trained extensively on trauma-informed care and advocacy. And since this is kind of a heavier topic to learn about, my supervisor focuses a lot on mental health. So similar to what Divya was talking about, we do a lot of mental health check-ins, or we'll have days that are just like pain sip days, or days that are healing days, which is really interesting to be a part of because I've never been in a program that focuses so much on the individual's well-being. So Fairgirls does have a pretty extensive internship program. This semester, they accepted about 10 interns, and they do hire interns for each semester. So some of our interns right now are actually doing the UCDC program through a different UC. So if you think that you might be interested in anti-trafficking or victim advocacy, then I would definitely recommend you check them out for the upcoming semesters. Because they're in DC, they are on a semester system, but so like I'm doing January to June, which would be 2 quarters, or if you wanted to do fall, it would be most likely August to December. So Fairgirls has definitely been an important part of my undergraduate career. It influenced my senior thesis topic, which is focusing on sex trafficking in the United States. And it's also made me realize that I want to do some type of social work in the nonprofit sector, whether it's trafficking or another form of victim advocacy. And then I am doing AIP right now for my Fairgirls internship. So I'll explain a little bit how AIP works. Since I am a peer advisor for AIP, I'll switch on over to that role now. So AIP offers academic credit for an internship that you secure on your own. So this means if you have to be offered a position and then you can submit all of your materials to apply for AIP. So a little bit different than UCDC, where you apply for UCDC first and then you start searching for your internships. So after you accept your internship position, you just submit a learning agreement through our internship portal. And you also have to find a faculty advisor to guide you on your final research paper or project. So the final project is the main assignment for AIP, and the length of it will depend on how many hours you're doing for your internship. So during a regular quarter, it's pretty common to do 10 hours a week, which would be 4 units of credit as pass, no pass, and then you would submit a 10-page research paper. And all of our credit will be offered as pass, no pass, and it can be used to fulfill certain major requirements. So for global health majors, I believe it can be used for the medical social science requirement, depending on what your internship is, as long as it meets those requirements, or it can be used for upper division elective credit.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Alexis. And you already answered all the rest of my questions. So perfect. So we're gonna move on to the UCDC application and some of the details. And I also included a quick slide on the AIP breakdown if anyone is interested in looking into AIP 197 for completing a local internship. So we will do this section, and then that'll bring us to the end of our presentation where we can switch into Q&A. So definitely everyone go ahead and think of questions for Divya and Alexis, as well as Aaron or I, if it's a program question. Okay, so the eligibility for UCDC. So students from all majors are welcome to apply. We just require that they are in upper division standing. So that means that they've completed 90 units and have done at least 2 upper division courses by the time they go to DC. So you can apply as a sophomore if you will be going to DC like as a junior when you're in upper division standing. We also require that there is you have a 2.5 minimum GPA. We do prefer 3.0 because that's a little bit more than the median of our applicants, but the minimum is 2.5. And then US citizenship is not required for the UCDC application. So international students and DACA and undocumented students are welcome to apply. The one note on that is if you are a student without US citizenship, we ask that you go to our website for the FAQ section, and also to keep in mind that there are some internships, for example, with certain federal departments that require US citizenship. But other than those couple of internships that sometimes require citizenship, most of the internships in DC do not. Additionally, how to apply. So these are the application materials that you will need. First is to fill out a general application form. And then after that, the main things are a resume, a cover letter or letter of intent, which we have some language on the difference between the 2 on our website, and 2 letters of recommendation. And so all of this is on our application portal on InternLink that you can go ahead and look up. One note on the letters of recommendation is that we recommend that a faculty member write one of the letters, but it's not required. It just helps speak to your academic abilities to know that you're in, solid academic standing to do this program. And so those letters of recommendation can be submitted online on Interlink, or when we are hopefully back in person in the fall, you can also bring it to the Commons, or you can send it by email. And so with the letters of recommendation, again, if you don't have a faculty member writing one of the letters of rec, you can just have them done by like a work supervisor, just someone that can speak to your abilities. And then earning academic credit, just once again, AIP 197 DC is 6, 8, or 10 units, pass, no pass only. And then the research seminar credit is 4 units, graded or pass, no pass. And this is all for upper division credit only. And so we do have a list of available courses on the UC Washington Center website. And so that's where you can actually see what the different course options for that research seminar are. So some of the examples are, US Congress, or a general research seminar where you get to do some independent research. Or one that was offered very recently was the new Biden presidency. And so it was a little bit of an in-depth class on the new administration. And then again, during the summer, there's no academic component. So you could choose to just do an internship and not receive any units at all. So moving on to program costs, which I think is really important for everyone to be aware of when planning for this program if you want to apply. So we do have an estimated budget on our website that gives a breakdown of expenses. But generally speaking, tuition and registration fees are the same for a quarter on campus. However, the cost of living in DC is a little bit higher. So that means that the cost of the apartment that you're staying at is a little bit more than the cost of a double apartment on campus, but it is very similar. The important thing that you should budget for is that students are responsible for paying for a couple of things. So number one is your round trip airfare. So that's your airplane ticket. We don't provide that. Students have to purchase one on their own, as well as local transportation costs. So we have had a pilot program with Metro where students are given free Metro cards. However, post-pandemic, I'm not sure what the fate of that program is. So that might be something to keep in mind, is if you need to pay for the Metro, as well as paying for things like Uber, taxi, bird scooter, which tends to be a popular way to get around, as well as any sightseeing activities that you want to do. There are some center-led trips, such as trips to Boston or Philadelphia. So like I went to Philadelphia when I was there, but it still was a paid out of pocket program. So I think I paid $50 for just the bus to take me to Philadelphia and back. It was still a good deal, but it was not something that was totally covered by the program. And then the other thing to consider as well is professional clothing for an in-person internship, if that internship requires a certain dress code, such as blazers or slacks, or potentially like professional shoes like loafers. Those are just things to keep in mind. And so circling back to the summer program once again, so if students are not taking units, therefore they're not paying for units, then students only need to pay housing costs, as well as the things that I just went over that students are also responsible for, such as the airfare. So you would not be paying for tuition and course units. And so moving on to scholarships, and so opportunities to help you pay for this program, especially if you do not receive financial aid. So the first is the UC Office of the Presidential Fellowship. So that fellowship is usually offered every academic quarter, and that is about $1,500 to $2,000. So it's a bit small, but it does help, especially for things like the airfare. And so all students are welcome to apply to it. The main thing is that it asks that students are working in some kind of public service internship, which for global health, you're pretty much solid. That is for sure a public service. As well as there are some AIP scholarships as well. So Those are given out based on financial need as well as overall academic performance. And so they are kind of given on a rolling basis. So if you're interested in an AIP scholarship, we ask that you come in and talk to us to see what the current status is. And then for financial aid, this part's really important. Financial aid follows you to UCDC because you are a full-time UC student the entire time you're in the program. So if you get any tuition coverage, any housing coverage at UCSD, it should go with you to UCDC. And so if you'd like to know more about that, or meet with someone to ask about how your adjustment might be, since there's a higher cost of living in UCDC, you can go meet with the financial aid office to discuss those adjustments or discuss your status and your awards due to those differences in living expenses. So for example, I have some tuition coverage at UCSD. So when I did the UCDC program, that same tuition coverage followed me, which was a huge reason why I was able to do the program. So I was really grateful for that. And then bringing us towards the end, again, this quick note on AIP, just to give you a visual reminder. So AIP 197, as Alexis said, is upper division credit. Most internships, you get 4 units, pass, no pass, and you're working with the faculty advisor to develop a research paper or project related to that internship. And then AIP 97 is lower division standing. So anyone can do it for lower division credit as long as you have a 3.0 UC GPA, and then it's only available for 2 or 4 units. Similarly, working with an advisor to develop a paper or project. So if you're interested in doing AIP, again, UCDC is a special program underneath AIP, so for sure come and talk to us. So just let you guys know of the upcoming UCDC deadlines to get it on your radar. So we are currently recruiting and accepting applications for fall 2021. Our final deadline is coming up April 25th on a Sunday. So that's in about 2 weeks. So if you are interested in applying to fall and you think that would be the best quarter, I really recommend that you start putting together your application materials as soon as possible. Alternatively, winter 2022, that is a little bit of a later deadline, so it gives you more time to prepare. The priority deadline is May 7th, and then the final deadline will likely be over the summer. So winter definitely has a longer period for you to think about going. And we did receive notice that fall will be in person this coming fall. So it is likely that winter quarter will be in person as well, although I can't make any promises. And then a note on the winter priority deadline. The priority deadline just means that it's the first batch of applicants, so you have a higher chance of getting in. But we usually have spots for students to apply to before the final deadline. I always recommend, if you really want to go a certain quarter, like that's the only time you can go, or it's the absolute best time for you to go, I recommend trying to apply by the priority deadline. And then lastly, before we switch into Q&A, this is our contact information. So every Tuesday from 1:30 to 3 p.m., we have drop-in advising hours for both UCDC and AIP. So you can come talk to us then. You can also schedule an appointment to meet with Jennifer, who's our UCDC coordinator, to discuss more about the program, or especially any considerations that you want to talk about with her. So you can make an appointment with her through this link, as well as you can also schedule an appointment to meet with a UCDC peer advisor like myself through this link. So those can all be found on our website, which I will drop into the chat for all of you. And then for global health advising, you can make an appointment with an advisor like Erin through the virtual advising center. And so with that, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing. And students, I welcome you guys to